Here. Addison Draper. No. Johari Harris. Pari Ram. Nope. Kayla Dees.
Here.
Rebecca Hecox.
Here.
Alva Huff.
Here.
Alice Bruckner, I am here. Lindley Terrace is
Here.
here. And Steph Schumacher.
She's here.
I just lost some of you. She's here. Okay. Okay, so roll is called.
Thank you. And I believe there is quorum present. Is that correct?
That is an excellent question. I can look that up real quick.
Because we're missing
I b-
two.
Yes, so I believe based on the numbers, there is quorum present. It just needs to be a majority.
Oh, okay. So then I guess we're good, right?
Yes.
Okay.
It was more of a formality of me asking you. Sorry.
Sorry, I thought I should look it up
I
since I
didn't mean to
didn't know
put
the
you on the
answer.
spot. Our
That's
first
like one of
order
my
of
two
business
jobs. I should know that.
will be to approve the agenda. This was provided to you and emailed out yesterday. Are there any changes to the agenda? None being heard at this time. May I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Ms. Dees. May I have a second?
Second.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. If there's any opposed, please say nay so we can document it.
Can I just make a note that Pari just entered? I don't know if everyone saw that.
Oh, great. Thank you. I did not see
Yep.
that.
Yep, he's here.
Agenda has been approved. We will now review and approve the meeting minutes from our last meeting. Those were provided to you over email. And are there any corrections at this time? If there are no corrections, may I have a motion to approve the previous meeting's minutes at this time?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Ms. Dees, second by Ms. Schumacher. All in favor, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, please say nay. Okay, all in favor, the previous meeting's minutes will be approved. We will now move on to the discussion items on our agenda. The next agenda item is the budget feedback presentation. Ms. Bringslet will walk us through the proposed schools draft budget, which
Yep.
you will see today. A couple of the slides are things that we've all gone through, and since we've gone through them for many meetings, it's really slides 7 through, I think, around 18 or 19 that we will focus on. After the presentation, we will have a discussion about how the budget aligns with our school strategic plan. The Go Team office has asked us to focus on if there's any adjustments from the district baseline funding support and how it affects our school's goals. And if we need to provide any feedback to Ms. Bringslet, and how our school will make the most of its available resources. So at this time, Denise, you may take over.
Thank you. Sounds like a plan. Okay, so these are those front matter slides that Lindley was talking about. This is the roadmap that we've seen multiple times this year on how we budget throughout the budget season. So we're here, Go Team feedback meeting. I will have my staffing conference directly after this. That's why I could not be in person because my conference is at 4:15. So we will have until 4:14 for discussion. Hopefully we can wrap it up before then, but open to chatting about this as long as we need to. So let's jump in. If you'll remember, this is our strategic plan. As we discussed over the course of the school year, does capture all of the edits and changes that we've made throughout the year to our strategic plan. This is what we've already done together. This is the ranking of our strategic objectives. which we did in depth last meeting. And then this is kind of where we're going now. So this is an example of the table that the district has created for this strategic use of dollars concept. We have a focus area, which is that if we're going back to this, that's these are our 6 big domains that we're focusing on. So that's the focus area of each resource allocation that we're doing, how it links to the strategic objective that we created as a team, and then how money is being spent to support that objective. And then I actually took off the additional information column because any information I just put in that how much column, it just gave me a little more space to work with. So this is kind of the roadmap for the information I'm going to share for you here in a moment. All right, which is here. So first off, there are hundreds of lines on the budget, and there are a lot of uses of dollars that are going to be consistent from last year to this year. So what I tried to capture here on this slide was any changes, right, that are going to be happening. So here for the focus areas of sparking student curiosity and the efficient and effective piece, you can see 2 of our strategic objectives that we listed underneath these areas are the unique learning opportunities and equitably align our resources to become a STEAM certified school. So a couple of allocations that I prioritized for that were $374,000, which is not an increase of $374,000. As of this year, we invested about $235,000 in STEAM programming. So this is a slight change, but very much so a hold tight, consistent with the increases in staff salaries. So this money is going to cover our Cognia STEAM certification process, which we've already started, which is awesome. We're getting a leg up and getting started now so that we can really, really jump in and hopefully finish the process by the end of next school year through that alternate accreditation agency. I've also added some program supplies line. It's not very much, I think, and it'll come up on one of the subsequent slides. I think it's like $10,000 or $15,000 to ensure that we have enough money to supply and fund our project-based learning experiences, really focusing in on the outdoor learning classroom that the PTO is for the most part funding with like a capital investment to build the classroom itself, but definitely wanted to, utilize some of our dollars from the budget to supplement and just make that space exactly what we need for our kids. Because a lot of that we might not know until we actually get into the space. We think we know what we need, but wanted to reserve some money to really make that space as usable as we can. I've added a few, not a whole lot. You'll see these in detail on the next slide. Team stipends. This was a recommendation from some fellow principals that I got who have gone through either the STEAM certification process or the IB certification process. There's an opportunity for us to create a STEAM team. I know Stephanie, I've talked to you a lot about this. I was able to to allocate some stipends for folks who serve on that team, because it is going to be above and beyond the work that any one person has in their job description. So I do have some small stipends available for some team members. I don't know who those team members are yet, but the stipends are just available for us to create the team and then use it. And then also this is the most of the money of that $374,000 goes to staff. I would say over $300,000 goes to staff. That's our STEAM lab teacher, our STEAM coach, and our band orchestra teacher are theoretically funded out of the STEAM programming money. That being said, we also have a lot of other positions that support STEAM programming that are funded through our general budget. So it's not a one-to-one correspondence like this dollar is for STEAM and it goes directly to STEAM. It all just kind of goes into one bucket and we allocate it in this way. We also are going to be focusing a lot more on digital literacy and writing for our 2nd and 3rd graders. we are workshopping, like we don't know exactly what this rollout's going to look like because it is February, but we are drafting a master schedule that allows second and third graders time in the media center to focus on digital literacy. Yes, this is typing, and yes, this is like composition using technology, but it's also, we really want to lean into the idea that our children are producers of technology and not just consumers of technology. And this aligns to a lot of the recent changes in the ELA standards around an interdisciplinary emphasis on reading, speaking, listening, and writing. And those 4 components come up over and over again. So I want to make sure that we're bringing all of those components in, starting in 2nd grade, right? I think that traditionally, when you think writing lab, a lot of that work focuses on like 4th and 5th graders. But we saw a need for our 2nd and 3rd graders to get that exposure early on, so that they feel comfortable and confident composing and writing with their hands typing, as opposed to pencil and paper. That will obviously still be a component. There are new cursive writing standards, not new, but reimagined cursive writing standards. So don't worry, it's not going to be all computers. So that speaks to that piece. If you move to the next row, our objectives of prioritizing social emotional growth and our priority or objective of having an inclusive school culture. This year, as you know, as a part of the work that we did at the Go team, we were able to invest in our full-time school counselor, which was the status quo. That's what we had always had, was one full-time school counselor. And, as we reduced our school social worker allocation last year, the concern was that we may not have enough supports around mental health for our students if we didn't have Ms. Thomas, who served in that capacity a lot because she was on site with us full time as a staff member with the CARES funding that we received from COVID. So when we took some of the time that she was at Mary Lynn away, the suggestion from this body was to invest somehow in additional school counseling services. That's why we were able to go with an hourly school counselor for this current school year. Full disclosure, that individual who has been working as an hourly school counselor works much, much more than any hourly school counselor ever would need to work. She is on site many more than the 29.5 hours that she's technically allowed to work and get paid for as an hourly employee. But that being said, this year we've been very mindful about how we allocate the duties and responsibilities of school counselors as a whole between our full-time and hourly school counselor. Because if you think about an hourly school counselor, it doesn't really feel appropriate to give that person an entire caseload, right? Because they are an hourly individual. They're not a full-time staff member. And for example, hourly staff members don't come in on teacher work days. They don't come in any of the pre-planning days. They don't come in any of the post-planning days. Hourly staff are really only on site when kids are on site. So we were able to utilize an hourly school counselor for some classroom lessons and some small groups, and she's been an incredible asset to the team. But we really want to get to a structure where we can create a case management system where our 2 school counselors share the load in a very specific and even way to reduce that ratio closer to the ASCA, which is the American School Counselors Association recommendation of 250 to 1. So that's 250 students to 1 school counselor. And with 2 full-time school counselors, we will be right at that. And I am incredibly excited to see what we're able to do with 2 folks serving in that capacity. One other thing that we've talked about with this increase in investment is not only continuing to support our students on site in the school building, but also providing some supports for families and thinking about how we can bring educational programming to the community. For example, Ms. Hecox and Ms. Fuller and I were talking, as we do, offline in the hallway, about like resilience and grit. And Ms. Fuller was talking about how important resilience and grit is to develop in students in an academic way. And Ms. Hecox was talking about how important that is in a social emotional way. And we were talking about how sometimes we see a disconnect by the level of perseverance students are pushed to at school versus a level of perseverance they may have to push through at home, and thinking about ways that we can teach families about strategies that you can use at home to develop that sense of resilience and grit with your kids. So they were talking about even partnering and providing some family facing programming around how we can increase resiliency with students in both academic and social settings. So really thinking about how we can utilize those two school counselors to wrap around support, not only in the schoolhouse during the school day, but like from a community perspective. And that's not possible with a full-time school counselor and an hourly school counselor, and it's not possible with one school counselor and 530 students. So that's that investment. Next one is the responsibility is shared. So cultivate an environment that retains, empowers, motivates, and inspires teachers. So the increase to 5 teachers in first grade is going to really increase the capacity of our first grade teachers to effectively and in a timely manner meet the needs of first graders with a smaller student teacher ratio. That leads to less teacher burnout, just a more not doable isn't like the right word, but a class of students who you really feel like you can meet all of their needs because you're not stretched too thin with 24 first graders. 24 first graders is a lot, especially when they just came from a class with 2 educators, a full-time teacher and a full-time para, and then you're going to just 1 teacher all the time, and you've still got 80% of the kids who can't read. So really wanted to decrease that student teacher ratio, which is what led to the increase to 5 teachers. So that's an increase of 1 teacher's salary, which is $131,000, but I put the entire investment here. This does not mean we're going to increase $655,000 on our first grade team. We're really just increasing $131,000, but the total for all 5 teachers is $655,000. And then would love to continue to staff. This was something that a move that we made at the beginning of the year this year with our leveling dollars, which was to staff 2 hourly teachers to support EIP students. And also we've been able to use those folks to support CUSP students, which are students who are like not an EIP necessarily. EIP is reserved for students who are at the 30th percentile or below, but thinking about those kiddos who maybe are in the 30th to 40th percentile. So data wise, quantitative, piece doesn't qualify them for EIP, but there are gaps and we can support those kids by filling in gaps. So those 2 hourly teachers want to continue to invest in that. So that's not an increase, that's just a continuation. And then last here, using data to inform instruction with a focus on achievement and growth. Want to increase our MTSS 504 position to a 1.0 FTE. So that's not a $149,000 increase. It's about a $75,000 increase because we already have a 0.5 MTSS 504 position. Want to just increase that by 0.5 to a whole 1.0. Lots of reasons for that. Something that I've learned, itinerant staff are difficult to schedule. I've known that. I've worked with itinerant staff. Most of the schools that I've worked in do have itinerant staff to some degree. But when you're talking about instructional leaders, such as the MTSS chair and even the special education lead teacher, having those staff only on site for 2 to 2.5 days a week is a real barrier to being able to communication, to strategic planning, to synthesizing everything as a team, because then we're really beholden to only the days that those staff members are on site. And then as you all, I'm sure, know, things come up, things happen. And then, it just ends up it feels like almost twice as long for us to achieve our goals because we only have those folks half the time. So I want to increase that position to a 1.0, thinking about how we can incorporate the MTSS chair into instructional coaching. So going to wrap that individual into our coaching model. And I've already started talking to our current instructional coaches about how we can develop her skills as an instructional coach and have her not only working on the family facing side of tier 2 and tier 3 meetings and holding 504 meetings, but also like getting into classrooms and working with students and providing feedback on instruction, specifically instruction related to intervention, right? So she would be specifically coaching teachers on how well they are intervening, reviewing progress, monitoring details with the teachers on a very consistent basis. And, being able to leverage her strengths as an interventionist at the table 5 days a week, I think is going to have a real impact. I will say anecdotally, my former boss and colleague now, Mr. Harness at VHE, I'm going to tell his business here, but he was like, we can do it with a half. We can do it with a half. And I was always telling him, because at that time I wasn't making the decisions, right? I was like, we need a whole person. I'm telling you, Terry, it's going to change your life. We need a whole person. We need a whole person. And guess what? Last year he did it and he made a whole person. He told me shortly after he did it, like a month later, he was like, it has changed the game. And that individual that's working at his school has been able to do just what I envision Miss Bellard, who holds his current role, would be able to do with us at VHE. So I have a good evidence that increase is a real benefit. So let's see, what's next? Okay, so that was kind of like the big picture overview. I said that we were going to see some details in the following slides. These are the slides that show the actual details. Those were sums, like big numbers. Now we're going to go into the details. All right, this is an example. This is not our staffing tab. This is an example of the summary tab showing what each column refers to. So baseline is the district's recommended staffing for positions. Then we have a staffed column, which is showing my proposal to staff those positions for next school year. The difference is the difference between those two values. And then comments, you'll see the comments written, but I'll also be speaking about the comments here. All right. So this is the breakdown for our staffing. There's going to be 2 slides on staffing. So this is our breakdown for our teacher positions. We've got a baseline of 63.4 and staffed of 63.3. So only a very minimal difference in baseline versus staffed. Overall, where there are differences are within the individual positions as a baseline. And I'll kind of explain those now. So you'll see we were baseline, right? This is what we were allocated, if you will, 4 teachers in kinder, 5 in first, 4 in second, 4 in third, 3 in fourth, yikes, and 3 in fifth, yikes. Okay, so the way it's staffed currently in our building right now is 4 all the way down, right? So if I just stuck with the baseline, then we'd lose 2 teachers in 4th and 5th grade. We would gain a teacher in 1st grade, but those student-teacher ratios are not going to work in 4th and 5th grade. So you can see those numbers here. With 3 teachers, it'd be 27 or 28 kids per class, which is underneath the state's recommended class size for 4th and 5th grade. But we would definitely want to keep it at 4 teachers with 20, 21, 22 kids per class in those upper grades. Keeping that 5th, 1st grade teacher here feels like an increase to us because we only have 4 teachers this year. And I'm going to talk about where these 2 positions are coming from. So here we have EIP teachers. We have the 1 full-time EIP teacher, continue to have those hourly teachers support EIP. The electives or enrichments, these are what you know as specials: art, band, music, orchestra, PE, world language, STEM lab, and gifted. Gifted is a little bit different. It's not a special, but it's under this tab anyway. You can see what we were allocated for each of those positions. 1.2. I'm thankful for the allocation because that means I get 0.2 more of a salary to dedicate to another position. So you can see that's kind of what happened for most of these specialist positions, with a difference here. I see, I should have gone back. This is not an increase in band and orchestra. Don't misread that. That just meant an increase from our baseline to what was staffed. Like we were baseline 0, I increased it and made it 2.5. That's not a year over increase. We're going to continue to have the same band and orchestra staffing and then services we had this year. One slight change that we're making for world language is to reduce that to a 0.5. We were baseline 1.2, but this year we weren't staffed 1.2. This year our Spanish was staffed at a 0.9. and we had a 0.1 ESOL. Next year, we're going to have a 0.2 ESOL, and that educator is going to be split with another school for ESOL. So we're decreasing Spanish to 0.5. That means that at least 3 grade levels will have Spanish next year. We're still working on the master schedule to figure out what makes the most sense there. Once again, STEM Lab, this says increase. That's not an increase year over. That's an increase from our baseline of 0 to 1. Same one STEM Lab teacher. This is the question mark that I'm sure a lot of you have. This says that we're baseline 5.5 teachers. That's because of the number of gifted students that we have at Mary Lynn. I'm proposing to continue to allocate 2 of those teachers as resource model gifted teachers. So those 2 teachers would not be a homeroom teacher. They would only be working with gifted students. And then technically 2 of those teaching positions I'm putting in these homerooms, right? Because a teaching position that I pay for, whether it's a gifted teaching position or a kindergarten or band or EIP, it's the same cost, right? So I'm reallocating 2 of those positions up to 4th and 5th grade homeroom positions. So that leaves, one kind of position that's floating out there. And, if you want, once again, this is all not one-to-one correspondence, but if it helps you in your head to think about one-to-one correspondence, you can think that one of those gifted teachers we are allocating to be a STEM Lab teacher. Like, if that helps you. It's not like that, but some people like to say, like, well, if we're not getting this, what are we getting, right? So, so we're not getting an additional gifted teacher, but we do have a STEM Lab teacher. And this aligns with our move to incorporate the cluster grouping model instead of the resource model. And I've explained that to you all a few times, but just to review, we started this year with 1st grade. So this year, our 1st grade students, all of our 1st grade teachers are gifted certified, and all of our 1st grade students get their gifted services in their homeroom class with their gifted certified teacher. We are moving up next year, so that's going to be 1st and 2nd grade is going to follow that model. So as of next year, all of our 1st and 2nd grade teachers will be gifted certified. All of our 1st and 2nd grade students will get their gifted segments in their homeroom with their homeroom gifted certified teacher. So that decreases the need for us to have an additional gifted teacher for resource pullout because we'll have fewer kids in resource pullout. That being said, I'm excited that one of those gifted teachers is going to be they will teach resource segments as well, but they will also be able to push in and pull out from the 1st and 2nd grade classrooms to provide additional support for those gifted learners as we build the program. Because as you know, your first year doing it, not going to be perfect. And that's kind of like what we figured out this year with 1st grade is that there were definitely some needs on the teacher end around planning and incorporating those gifted learner strategies. So we're going to really intentionally focus one of those gifted teachers' time on the days they're not doing gifted resource to push in or pull out and support those grade levels. So we can really ensure that those gifted learners aren't getting left behind and they are truly getting gifted education because they are gifted eligible learners, just in a different way, not through the resource model. Okay. Here is the second portion of our staffing sheet. You can see that for ESOL, like I said, we had an increase and we're funded at 0.2 for ESOL this year. Same number of interrelated teachers, same number of special ed lead teachers, same EBD teachers, same SLP. Not really no changes on here. You can see we are continuing to staff a para and PE, continuing to staff a non-instructional aid, rethinking, what that individual schedule is going to look like next year, incorporating some additional duties and responsibilities beyond, the school clerk duties and responsibilities, which we've discussed, and continuing with 1 principal, 1 assistant principal, 1 school secretary. And then for, like I said, for school clerk, we have had an hourly parent liaison, which we will continue to fund, and a non-instructional aid, which will provide support in our front office. We surprisingly, I had no idea how, earned 2 assistant principals. We are moving forward with 1 assistant principal, but if you like the one-to-one correspondence, you can think about us reallocating the funds that we earned for that additional assistant principal and putting it toward that increase in MTSS and then the increase in school counselor, if you like that one-to-one correspondence. If you think about that, a full-time school counselor would do a lot of the things that an assistant principal already does, specifically around behavior, communication, collaboration between teachers and parents. So school counselor can really meet a lot of those needs. So that's why, I would recommend additional school counselor versus an additional assistant principal. All right, student and school support. So this is a place where some of those funds that you saw from that first slide, from all those little 0.2s, are going to show up. So baseline for, oh my God, our baseline for school counselor is 2. I just realized that. Great for us from in your baseline. So then just think about it, that's where the money's coming from. Okay, but the next line is the real kicker, is baseline is 0 instructional coaches. And instructional coaches are certainly an asset at the planning table, in the classrooms, in every capacity. And we do staff 3 instructional coaches, wanting to continue that staffing. I mean, 3 instructional coaches is a lot of money. I mean, it's like $450,000. Don't worry, people don't make $150,000 in those roles, but that's how much we have to pay for them. So I think you're wondering, like, man, I should be an instructional coach, trust me. So we do have to pay, it's a significant cost to pay for those positions. So you can think of all those little one-offs where there was a reduction. Those funds are being funneled into our instructional coaches, which are assets for our school. So last year we had an instructional coach, readers or leaders. I'm just naming that as a literacy coach, so that she doesn't have to do all of the readers or leaders programming, because we're not a school that's involved with the Rollins Center. Our social worker, so we are going to reduce for 1 more day. So this year we've had a school social worker for 0.4, which has been 2 days a week. We are sharing with VHE and Spark after collaboration and conversation with our school social worker alongside the other principals. It was determined that another school needed increased support from a school social worker based on their demographic transition, student transitions and turnover. And so we are decreasing our allotment there. So we will have a school social worker 1 day a week versus 2. Mr. Harness is messing with me. Because this is so fun. I'm just to paint a picture here. I'm sitting here in this like waiting space, and all of my colleagues are like walking in here because they're going to their staffing meetings and they don't know what I'm doing, and they're all messing with me. So sorry if I look crazy. Okay, so we're gonna have 1 less day of a school social worker, but there is a cluster-wide investment, which you're not going to see on these slides. It's only about $9,000 total cost for us at Mary Lynn, but the cluster is investing in a cluster-wide residency officer that's going to support Midtown, Howard, Mary Lynn, VHE. And that school residency officer is going to be able to take off some of the social workers' tasks, specifically around residency. So that is something that Ms. Thomas does work on often as our school social worker, is keeping track of attendance. And then if students have patterns of attendance concerns, then we do incorporate our student assignment team and start looking at residency, and there's escalations that can happen. And that is some of the work that Sadia does on 1 of her 2 days. So since we're not going to have her for another day, I felt better about that, knowing that we were also investing in a school residency officer who we can tap whenever we need to check on residencies within our Mary Lynn community. You'll also see that SST increase here. And then there's like a 0.5 psychologist. It's not under my purview. Sometimes they just put stuff on the budgets that for like different departments. That's not fine. We have 1 psychologist on site, and she will continue to be there. Same number of custodians, site manager, and school resource officer, who is amazing. Don't we love Officer Barty? She has been such a ray of light and sunshine. Okay. So here we go to non-staffing. I know you're like, I have questions now, but just let me get through non-staffing and then we can go back. I'll go back to the staffing tab and you can ask questions. This is an example. This is not our non-staffing tab. You can see similarly to the staffing tab, you've got the recommended, which is baseline, what I'm allocating, which is what I'm proposing, and then the difference. notes. I will explain those here. All right, sorry, I was going to split this onto 2 slides, but it really didn't make sense. So if you'll see, we have our reserve, which is the money that we ended up earning and having to spend at the beginning of school this year, which I do feel very confident that we are going to earn again. The problem with the amount that we have for reserve is that it's not enough for a whole teacher. So, and there's pros and cons to, bringing a teacher into the fold after leveling. Leveling doesn't happen until the 15th day of school. Realistically, if I wanted to hire a teacher with the money I earned after leveling, there would still be probably about a month-long process of finding a great candidate, hiring them, onboarding them, getting them into the school. And then so what that would mean for our students is reallocating kids into a different class, a month and a half into the school year. And, while it's not the worst thing that can happen, if we can avoid it at any cost, I would like to. So I'll show you a little bit later some ideas I have for the reserve. I have allocated $8,000 for teacher stipends. I think that's the exact same that I did last year. $1,500 per lead team teacher. That is not a homeroom teacher. So the 6 homeroom teachers that are on lead team, the district allocates their stipend, but the other teachers who aren't homeroom teachers, they don't get a stipend, like our specials teacher who serves on the committee, or the EIP lead who serves on the committee, or the gifted lead who serves on the committee. So I like to allocate stipends for those folks so that everyone who's doing the work gets a stipend. I'm also allocating $2,000 for our yearbook sponsor. There's some money that was recommended to fund for custodian overtime and school resource overtime. I just left that. I allocated what was recommended. For teaching and other supplies, this is I don't think I put any money on this line last year. So excited to have a little bit left over to allocate to teaching and other supplies. Obviously, whatever we don't allocate from our school budget to go toward these types of things, we utilize PTO money for all of the supplies and resources we need for teaching and learning. This is where you'll see the signature program and supplies. These are really just numbers that I did all my staffing, right? I put all my staff on the budget, and then I'm left with a number. It's whatever 12,483 plus 17,160 is. So that's just kind of there's no real significance to that number. That was just kind of the funds that we had left over. So I allocated those for Cognia STEAM certification and all of the work that we'll do toward that next year. Media supplies. So last year I allocated about $4,000 for media supplies, but we currently have $25,000 in our school checking account for media services from funds that were collected this year. We had a really good year at our book fair because we had it during the Thanksgiving luncheons, which we're going to do every year from now on. And so we raised a lot of money there. So I don't need to allocate any money on our school's budget for next year because we have that $25K for media services in Sabo. $2,500 strictly for dues for Cognia. This isn't the supplies, this is just the dues. And then these $4,500, which are the 3 stipends for Cognia accreditation and STEAM certification, $1,500 each. So that's those people I was talking about to serve on the STEAM certification team. If I chose 3 people because I was thinking, well, I'd be on the team. I don't need a stipend. Stephanie will be on the team. She doesn't need a stipend because that's kind of like our jobs. But then the other 3 folks who we get to join the team, we can give them a stipend. If we end up thinking we need 4 or 5 additional people, I can always pull $1,500 from these supply lines to fund additional stipends. Or I could utilize that reserve money. That's a great thing that the reserve money could be for, is utilizing that for stipends and anything that we need for STEAM certification. Reducing down to 1 in-person permanent sub. We currently have 2. So we'll reduce to 1 for next year. And then at the bottom here, you'll see those hourly staff I've already spoken about. Oh, this was one change I didn't highlight on the front page. Our hourly signature programming paraprofessional, I'm sorry, it's full-time this year. But we do want to transition that to hourly next year for the person who's helping out in the media center. We're going to continue with our hourly parent liaison and continue with the 2 hourly teachers, which you'll see there at the bottom. Okay, last slide before we get to questions and feedback. This is the budget by function. This shows what piece of the pie each of these account functions serves. 70% instruction, 11% pupil services, 6% improvement of instructional services, and then everything else. So you can see the biggest piece of our pie and the most FTEs go to instruction, pupil services, improvement instructional services. This is our kids. That's where the money is going toward, is what are we doing to grow and support our students. So I think that is okay. Let's not do discussion. Should we do discussion of reserve funds? Let's just go back here and I can ask and answer questions. What do you think, Lindley?
Yeah, we can go ahead and do questions. And I think there's a slide that lists questions that we are supposed to be. Yep, there it is.
There we go. Okay, well then let's just go through the presentation. Let me just tell you about the reserve. I didn't realize that was just the next slide. So reserve, we're going to hopefully get $119,000. These are ideas, right? So once we do get the reserve, we will come back to the table as a Go team in September, I assume. And I will share what I'm planning to do with the reserve at that time, kind of like we did this year, but these are just ideas. So we could fund an additional 0.5 teacher to support EIP, STEAM Lab, Makerspace, digital literacy. You know, these are all things that we're trying to promote at Mary Lynn. We could also invest in additional instructional resources to support STEAM programming and journey toward accreditation with Cognia. I know that Miss Schumacher is really jazzed about woodshop. So how could we create like a mini woodshop in our school to support STEAM programming, you know, through our accreditation journey? So that could be an idea. Next up, we could potentially invest in additional administrative personnel. That is an investment that I would like to focus on over the next year or two. We are underfunding our like school administration line, which is okay with me because school administrators are much less student like one-to-one on like seeing and interacting with students, but we are below the bar compared to our cluster and sister schools. So what I mean is at Mary Lynn, we have a principal, an assistant principal, and a school secretary. And a school clerk, you know, I mean, we have folks who are fulfilling the role of school clerk, even though it's not, you know, their job title. But at many other elementary schools that are the same size or smaller than Mary Lynn, there's a secretary, a school clerk, a business manager, a bookkeeper, an assistant principal, a principal. I mean, so they just have a lot more staff. I'm not saying we need to expand in that way, but potentially adding one more person to the role to maybe more intentionally delineate between like bookkeeping and accounting and like secretarial administration, enrollment, registration side things. So that's an idea. And then also thinking about the Curiosity of Learning objective, we could utilize some of the reserve money to fund additional staffing for the musical, sustainability projects, PBLs. Just ideas. Don't ask me about ideas. I got a lot of them. Okay, so here's our questions, Lindley. Go right ahead.
So these are the questions that we should be looking at as we evaluate Denise's presentation. Does the budget proposal support our school's strategic objectives and lead to achieving our goals? If there are any new positions, resources, or programs added, what data and feedback supports the changes? Were there any trade-offs in this budget? Any programs or resources being adjusted or reduced, and how does that impact our students? And if we are sharing staff positions, like you said, the social worker, how does this affect student support and service delivery at our school? So at this time as the Go team, we have the opportunity to provide input before this budget moves forward. If we have any adjustments or recommendations or questions, we can propose and discuss them now. And then once we conclude our discussion, we will take a vote on the draft budget. And after we vote on the draft budget, Denise will take the draft budget to the associate superintendent and HR staffing conference. And then once at our final meeting, we will approve the final budgets. Does anybody have any thoughts, questions, comments, etc. at this time?
I do. I raised my hand.
Oh, great. Oh, yeah, I see it now. Go ahead.
Yeah, so first, thank you for putting this together. I know this was a very thoughtful enterprise, and
Of course.
yeah, and I feel like I should start by saying I think anything that is done in a budget will be supportive to kids. And I wonder about the ways in which they're aligned with the strategic plan. I'm particularly concerned about the funding, the extra funding being allotted to a guidance counselor and not roles for the students with learning disabilities, and those kind of remaining in hourly things, if I read that budget correctly. I especially, is that not right? Because I guess one thing I was thinking about, like, why not, instead of, say, another guidance counselor, another.
So I know Becky is, I'm so sorry to interrupt you. Becky is dying to tell you that guidance counselor isn't, we don't say guidance counselor
Oh, I'm
anymore.
so sorry. I'm so sorry.
I just had to, and I can't even see her face. So it's,
Okay,
I know.
whatever-
And it's,
I was gonna keep
I
my
know.
mouth shut and say
What-
something later.
We're
But yes,
learning.
just school counselor.
Johari, I did the same
School
thing
counselor.
when
I'm so sorry.
I'm no, I learned as well. So I'm just passing along the
So
info,
sorry,
honey.
Becky. Please don't think that I meant anything.
No
No
offense
one
taken.
thinks that.
We were all probably raised in a world of guidance.
No one thinks
counselors,
that.
and that's okay. I will, anytime you'd like, privately, we can speak to why that has been a change.
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
Well, I hope it's okay
No.
because my aunt was a guidance counselor for like
No.
30 years, so I thought it was okay. But
No
yes,
one's upset with you. No one's upset with you. We understand. We've all done it. I'm just giving you an update.
yes. So, just the difference in roles, and then thinking about how the goal is like this kind of systems-wide approach to SEL, as well as these ideas around equity and justice. And I don't see those being explicitly addressed. Does that mean the person who's hired in that role is going to be, grounded in a particular like training form? That's like one piece I had questions and concerns about. I was also had questions and concerns about the STEM allotments. And it's something I feel like I brought up a lot within this space about how, and I've been reassured it's not just like science and math, it's
Right.
really about like what it can be interdisciplinary.
Mhm.
But when hearing about like this would be like a science lab and different activities to support very science and math focused things, it doesn't feel interdisciplinary in practice, even though I agree that STEAM is interdisciplinary. So I guess that's my other big question. And I also, granted I'm a parent, but I can imagine as a teacher, that you're giving extra stipends for people to work on the STEM like team, the three roles. But if your background is not STEAM or STEM, you might not. It feels like it could be inequitable about who's can apply, who is most qualified for this particular role, particularly when you get to the 4-5 when it's what's it called? So I don't know if there's a thing where there can be like there shouldn't be anybody from a STEM background within the STEM team to promote interdisciplinary practices, given that there's already these STEM specific roles within the school.
Mhm.
So that's I kind of have comments and feedbacks. And again, I think whatever is done, it's going to serve students. I also want to make sure we're aligned to what we collectively came up with. And
Mhm.
it doesn't feel that way to me at this moment.
Okay. So let me speak to, there were kind of three things I heard. So first off, thinking about the school counselor, and this is kind of when it comes to like getting it the trade-offs, right? So it sounds like for you, it feels like the school counselor position is a trade-off. And if we're going to fund a school counselor position, then we're not going to fund a teacher for students with special needs.
Yeah, I guess that's how I understand budgets to be trade-offs.
Yeah.
So, but yeah.
Yeah, so the way that special education is funded through the district is that's a hold type. So if you when you attended the budget training, I can't change our special education funding. So it's based on a formula. I can up fund, right? So I can increase funding in special education. But essentially so I guess the supports that special education students get are specifically related to their IEPs and the services that they are provided on their IEPs. And we're allocated teachers based on what those IEPs say and the services that students are supposed to get. So I agree that focusing on students with, unique academic needs is a priority. And
Oh, I was just going to add, because I think I might have been unclear. It's not just for me, the students who have like specific IEPs, but also just, within the spectrum, the students who are
yes,
low
and so
achievers.
that's the increase in the MTSS position. So that's getting that MTSS 504 person on site full time so that that person can better identify and support learners who are in the tier 2, tier 3 realm, because those are the students who could become students in special education. So there is an investment in that, and that's specifically through an increase and getting that MTSS person here full time. I think that when you talk about equity and diversity, and how we're supporting that at Mary Lynn, the hourly school counselor that we have on site is a Black woman, and she's amazing, and she could see themselves in her, and bringing her on full time would be an investment in ensuring that we have leaders in our school that look like students who don't look like me. And she is expressly interested in ensuring that students who are part of our minority ethnicity subgroups at Mary Lynn, don't feel like a minority. So, I can't talk about that, necessarily here, during the budget meeting, but that is a part of the programming that we're envisioning having from a community perspective, is enveloping our school counselors and having those critical conversations with families about how we as a community can do better.
Thank you. That's very helpful. I would love additional clarity though around the systematic approach, because while I can appreciate, I mean, I'm all for representation. I also know demographics aren't always like it really
Absolutely.
requires-
No, that's not the only thing. Yeah, right.
And I've also said this before in meetings, diversity, justice, equity is not just for my child, it's for
Absolutely. It's for all children.
all children,
Yes.
because when we do not talk about these things, particularly with privileged youth, things get
Absolutely.
So I guess
Absolutely.
is it not, so maybe my question is this, is it not possible to speak explicitly to like say our, top goal of justice and equity within the budget format? Like, is that, so maybe I'm just, like maybe that's beyond the scope of the budget. That's what
I think it is. And the conversation's incredibly important, and one that I intend to have, right? About if we're taking on an additional school counselor and we're making this investment, because the reality is Miss Kelly is our hourly school counselor, has been working on site at Mary Lynn all year in the role of school counselor. She's been working directly with Miss Hecox. She's been supporting kids, but she's just been in an hourly role. So we're unable to really give her a caseload that matches the work that we need her to do. So bringing her into the fold as a full-time employee is going to expand the work that she's already started and the gains that we've seen. And I'm happy to speak explicitly about that at the next meeting, potentially, if that's the right time. I'll talk to, my supervisor and see when we could engage in those conversations, but very important and heard. And you're completely right. I am a huge advocate that people, no matter who they are and where they come from and what they look like, need to understand what has happened in order to make it better for everybody, right? Everybody's voice at the table. So I agree, representation matters not only for minority students, representation matters for everybody, because everybody needs to see folks represented in leadership who don't look like them or who do, what I'm saying? I'm just trying to say, I agree with you, Jahari. So.
Yeah, no, thank you. And then just if you could give a little more clarity on just the
stipends. Yes,
Yeah.
yes. So, okay. So clarity, this is not a STEAM team. This is really, so to be accredited for Cognia, it's an entire accreditation process. So there's actually a lot of paperwork that we have to do. It's like a 90-page, literally workbook that we have to do. So I'm just looking for people who are interested in sitting down and doing that nitty-gritty work of just getting the workbook completed. This is not necessarily like a visionary team or like a team that's like making decisions about how dollars are being spent. This is really like a workhorse team who's going to sit down, come together, fill out the forms, figure out what we need. If things need to be implemented in alignment with that process, we will implement them. But it's not like an additional, experience like you were describing.
Perfect. Perfect. That's so helpful. And then my last question, this is my very last one. When it comes to, I remember there was that slide and I can try to pull up, oh, it's not there anymore, but it was talking about allotting a part of the budget to the STEAM activities. So is that a piece where we come back as a Go team later on to really break down what we classify as STEAM activities to ensure that it's interdisciplinary? Or is that something that the STEAM lead, like what is the process? Because it is a significant amount of money for additional activities, and just want to make sure.
So I would say it's more, those numbers and those dollars are more for investments, not activities. When we're talking about smaller activities, project-based learning, like the end of the year project, and I probably did interchangeably use those words incorrectly, but those dollars, we're more thinking about what I was talking about having a wood shop, right? About developing, like spending $40,000 to recreate one of our spaces into a space where kids can create. Or there's so many programs that our kiddos could be working in, like for example, the Lego robotics, like there's a Lego robotics league, right, that our kids could experience. There's a significant cost to start up those type of programs, and to have your kids or to have staff to run them. So it's more investments. Those decisions are not made at this table. We do decide on those programmatic aspects as like a school leadership team. But happy to like think about how we could incorporate. I mean, I don't know. I will also say Stephanie has a team called the STEAM Advisory Board, which is a conglomerate of community members, business leaders, activists. I mean, it's artists, writers, authors. I mean, it's so many folks are on the STEAM Advisory Committee, and that is a group of professionals that are actually external stakeholders that don't make decisions about what we do with our STEAM funds, but they do inform our decisions. So they are at the table. They meet with Stephanie once a month. She kind of updates them on the programming we have going on. She'll ask them questions, ask them for feedback. And they're coming. Are they coming on site this year, Stephanie? I thought maybe they were going to come.
Yeah, I was going to say anybody's welcome to come. We meet once a month or join because we, like Denise said, it's a mix of people. And last year they came on at the end of the year and sort of did like a walkthrough using a rubric that the district created. We have our meetings on Zoom, but like they are invited, like we're having a beautification day coming up. They're invited. They've been invited to the musical. Like a lot of the people are actually partners who come often onto campus to do things anyway. So for example, we have like this new farmer and he's probably been up here 3 or 4 times since he joined the advisory board in January. He's been like super involved. So awesome. It's kind of a variety depending on what their positions are.
And then to speak to what you just said, Johari, thinking about what Stephanie is saying, so if one of our priorities, which it is to ensure that we are teaching STEAM in an interdisciplinary way, we could ask the STEAM Advisory Board when they come observe, hey, talk to us about how you're seeing STEAM principles integrated in an interdisciplinary way. Are you seeing it? Where's our bright spots? Where can we grow? And like that board is generally involved in that conversation.
Okay, perfect. And I realize I have one more question, and then that's for real. I would be interesting to hear a little bit more about the rationale for the additional teacher in first grade compared to other grades. I know you spoke about literacy and supporting reading because a lot of them are kind of pre-literate, not fully reading at that point. And yeah, I'm just curious, especially with the upper grades and testing.
Yeah.
I also know it gets departmentalized, so it can be tricky. But yeah, any insight into that?
Numbers. We're projected at 97 first graders next year. So with 4 teachers, 97 students is 24 students per class. That is not sustainable in a first grade classroom. And that's why we're adding a 5th teacher to first grade this year. My intent, strategic planning wise, is to at some point and continue to invest in lower grades. And we're going to end up with 5, 5, 5, kinder, first, second, 4, 4, 4, third, fourth, fifth. Lots of different reasons for that. One of them is that 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade has been departmentalized. And so we actually might go to 5 teachers on 3rd grade eventually too. But in 4th and 5th grade, there's the math and science and the ELA and social studies. So they kind of partner teams. So 4 teachers make sense. And in 4th and 5th grade, they're a little bit more independent. So having larger class sizes makes sense. But I would like to get to 5 teachers per grade level, K through 2, really K through 3. So the first grade was just the first grade we started with because they're the biggest.
That's really helpful to see kind of like the larger plan of, I really like the idea of like 5 K through 3. Thank you so much. That was all my questions.
And now the next question is, where are all those classrooms going to be? So I've got to figure that out. It's going to be a moving puzzle piece, but we'll make it happen.
Denise, I did have one clarifying question.
Yes, ma'am.
So I'm looking at the slide because I know you showed what your allotment is, like what you want for the year, and based on our, I think it's slide 8, and you were showing how you're going to recommend and use the different funds.
Hold on.
And I wanted to make sure I understood correctly.
Yep. Let me go back to it. Which one are you talking about?
It's slide 8. Is strategic use of resources is the first one that you.
Oh, there we go.
Okay. So this is what you're recommending, and also kind of the money that you already know you're going to be getting. Or
So
is it because I look the internal? So really, I'm trying to compare and contrast what's on here and what you plan to use versus the reserve. In a sense, the slide that has the reserve.
Interesting. Yeah. So this slide was honestly kind of challenging for me to create because I was like, am I going to put everything on my budget on here? And like, that's why this was kind of challenging. Like for example, resource recommendation, like $655,000 for first grade. That doesn't mean that we didn't indicate, or that we didn't use, we used $0 last year and that we're using $655,000 this year. That's not what that means. It's just an increase of 1 teacher. So are you asking like which of these?
Well, no, so that means that what you have down for the reserve, which is like that 119, and whatever is on that slide, those are things that if we get the reserve, you're hoping it's slide.
So this
18.
This money, you're breaking up for me. I don't know if it's just me.
So
I think
basically with that one, can you hear me still?
Kind of, but I think it's me. Hold on.
Okay.
It's a little crackly for me too.
Oh, okay. It might be the school Wi-Fi. Let me move closer to a window. Maybe not. Did she fall off? Or is she? Oh, there she is.
I'm sorry, my Zoom crashed.
Oh, it's okay. But I have it up. I pulled up the PowerPoint. So really, I was trying to figure out if what you had in the reserve, that's the extra money that you're hoping you get from the district, or is that just what's like basically the funds that you showed are the things that they're saying, hey, we have this is how you can use it.
Right. No, so those are 2 completely separate things. The $119,000 I don't actually have.
Okay.
I don't have that. I will probably have that because you get that money if you're at or over projection on that 15-day count. And we somehow think the aboves. We're only projected at like 503, which is less than we have in the building today. So I was like, great. We're probably going to end up around 512, and that's not including pre-K. Pre-K doesn't count for any of our numbers for funding. But yeah, so I'm feeling very confident we're going to get that reserve, but we cannot touch it until that time.
And so
no correlation.
Okay, so the things you had listed
on the first slide
are the things that
those things are the things that are incorporated into those Excel slides. Those things, that was like an overview, and like the details were in the actual budget screenshots.
Got you. And so
Yeah.
this last one, that's just like, okay, we get the reserve. This is how the reserve funds
Those
will
are
be used.
ideas we
Or
could do, you
ideas.
know.
Okay. So
Yes,
then
ma'am.
my I guess my follow-up with it is kind of thinking about, will there be wiggle room? So like we know we have the part-time EIP, like we know we have the two
Mhm.
part-time EIP that,
Mhm.
you know, I know it's accounted for already
Well,
in the budget.
hourly. Make sure we say
Hourly.
hourly, right? Because part-time is a
Hourly.
half each. I know it's just hourly. Okay. Mhm.
So hypothetically speaking, with the budget and with what you're projecting, if let's say we happen to have a need for more, does the district then give more money for that? Like more students end up qualifying and needing more assistance?
Interesting.
Or do we get just
So
thinking about the need?
no,
Okay.
not for EIP, but you just got me thinking. I do believe that when we are over projection, we actually earn dollars for every child we are over. And if we're a certain number over, we might actually get to $131,000 with that reserve. And if we do, I probably wouldn't. It depends on where we are after 15 to 20 days, right? If we're like, listen, kindergarten is bananas, there's 21 kids in a class and we can't do anything with it, or, you know, I don't know, we could add a kindergarten teacher, right? Same with any other grade level, but we could also potentially take one of those hourly teachers who's interested in a full-time position and interview them for, and, do a screening process and hire an additional EIP teacher. That could be possible.
And that really answers my question, just because, you know,
Yeah.
from being in the classroom position and just seeing different, and like, I'm just curious as what that,
That's a great idea.
like,
Yeah, we could
what the
totally do that.
opportunities would be. If that,
Mhm.
okay. Great.
The only other thing, I mean, we were so lucky to find the two hourly teachers that we got in the middle of first semester. They are both incredible educators and like have added so much for our school and students in the 15 hours they each work a week. Um, but the hard part about hiring a teacher after leveling is the candidate pool is small. You know what I mean? It's not like hiring a teacher in March for the following school year. So that's the only concern about hiring a teacher after leveling. But seeing that we found these two incredible individuals for those hourly positions, I mean, we very well could find a slam dunk educator after leveling and use the dollars for that. Dee's very possible.
Well, Denise, I did. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, jump in. Hey, honey.
Hey. So I was wondering, okay, so the school, I think you said the school residency officer, is
Mhm.
that the same thing as the school resource? Like, is that a shared or that's
No,
totally
totally
separate?
different. They just sound similar. Totally
Okay,
different wheelhouses, not nothing together.
okay.
The residency officer
Uh,
works under the umbrella of enrollment, registration, records, student assignment. They
okay.
live in that space, whereas the resource officer is a police officer working with safety and
Would,
security.
would the residency officer be coming out of our budget? Like we're paying for
Only
that
only $9,000. We are only having to pay for 0.1 of the position.
because it's
The
a
other
shared.
schools, because it's a
Okay,
shared position.
okay,
So,
okay,
but that's honestly aligned with about the time that we would need them, is about 10% of their time, because we don't have
okay,
a lot of cases
okay,
where we have to investigate residency or provide support around residency, which this person could also do. You know, if you have
okay,
individuals who end up, losing housing, in your zone and needing support there, this person could also help them in that way. But they will
okay,
also, the great thing about it is we often have, when you have residency concerns, we often have families that have kids attending multiple schools, right? Elementary, middle, high. This individual is going to be knowledgeable about all issues in our zone, in the Midtown zone. So that's going to give them an opportunity to like make connections and just be really aware of what's going on in the Midtown cluster community as a whole. So
okay.
I love the idea. I would love to enter into more. And like I know it sounds like I'm kind of talking out two sides of my mouth, because I did say that itinerant staff are difficult. I would like to reiterate that like the itinerant staff that directly support teaching and learning, that's hard. Having itinerant staff that are more on the student support side, is a little bit different because we
Okay.
don't have to converse so often and talk so often about, student achievement.
Okay.
So itinerant staff for those type of roles, I think, are really beneficial. I floated, it didn't happen this year, but it might happen in the future. Our cluster going in on a board certified behavior analyst that we could support just in our school district. We also kind of talked about having, what else did we talk about? Anyway, I think it's a great idea because the more synthesis we can get around the cluster and like that or the K to 12 pipeline, I think is helpful in the community. So,
And that person would work with our school social worker, like they would
Yep.
kind of work hand in hand together. Okay.
And it's perfect because our school social worker supports Mary Lynn and VHE, and this person will also support Mary Lynn and VHE. So they'll be working a lot together.
Okay. And then my other question was, so with the MTSS, so what we're looking at is hopefully creating more of a instructional coach position for that person where they're coming in and actually hands-on with doing interventions, helping out in the classroom, kind of like modeling or even watching, for just things that, we need to like improve on, things like that.
Best practices
Okay.
for students
Yes,
who have
yes.
those needs. Yeah.
Okay. And then my other thing, sorry, is so I know you just said that the counselor, like we're baseline for 2. Does that mean that we would have to take it out of our, like, find it somewhere?
It's not
If
really
if we're-
finding it somewhere.
Okay.
No, you're totally right. It's an increase for us because we didn't fund 2 last year. So really we're just reallocating. We were, I think actually we were funded 2 last year, Becky, weren't we?
We were. They changed the funding formula last year.
Yeah.
And I mean, just a vote of confidence for us. It sounds like we're one of the few elementary schools who is planning to use that money as allocated, which I think is, for my profession that I love so much, a step in a really cool direction. So for us to commit to that is nice. But the funding formula did change last year.
So you're right. So Alva, so essentially last year we were funded 2 counselors and we utilized the money from the second school counselor to go towards something else. So now really you can just consider it as a recouping of those funds back into the position because we did have a baseline of 2.
Okay. So then we would still need to take it because I know one of the slides, I think it said like it was from the assistant principal because we were a baseline for 2. Would we still need to remove it from that or?
I mean,
does that make sense? Sorry.
It is. It's just it's difficult because it's not so like directly aligned. Like it's not like the dollars that are spent on the school counselor are coming directly from that assistant principal line. I mean, really, it's just you can think about it as like we have this big pot of money, and then the money is the trouble is that the money is allocated based on positions, but then the way that I use that money to fund positions looks different. And so it's challenging. In full transparency, I would love to get to a place where we can have 2 assistant principals and potentially fewer instructional coaches, right? Because as we continue to, develop our instructional framework and when we get STEAM certified, we're going to be moving in the direction where we might not need 3 instructional coaches. We might just need 2, right? And then with those funds being put back into the pot, we could very well bring in 2 assistant principals. And then in the absence of an instructional coach, we would know that one of those assistant principals would have specific responsibilities related to instruction, or MTSS. That's another thing I could do. If we end up, we're just not there yet, but I do have a vision for getting there. For example, with an MTSS and 504 chairperson, I have heard of or seen models where a school doesn't have someone specifically for those roles because they have more than one assistant principal and one of the assistant principals does those tasks.
Okay.
So we could.
Okay. And I know that and I know, we're still doing the scheduling and everything. And I guess because it's like number 2 on our objectives, is it where we're looking at increasing class
like with the counselors, we're increasing the in demand
Yes.
class times,
Yes.
or is it more of just community, like
Great
outreach?
question. No, great question. So yes, increasing face-to-face time that our school counselors have with children,
Okay.
whether that's in the counseling space or in the general ed classroom or in the cafe. I mean, it's anywhere. So
Okay.
yes, and I know we are still working on the schedule.
Yeah.
But what we are thinking, and which is becoming a reality the more and more we work on it, is we are going to be on a 5-day rotation, which is going to instantly feel better than a 6-day rotation. And students will, work with their school counselor once every other week on a schedule and a rotation. So it's not once every other 6 days. It is once every other week.
Okay.
In addition, we're going to be bringing into the fold some really intentional small group opportunities based on those caseloads, right? Because if you think about it, a first grader who is working on impulse control may not need the same intervention that a fifth grader working on impulse control might need, right? So the way that we've been able to structure small groups, having a full-time and an hourly counselor, has been better than it was, but it's just still not best. It's still not exactly where it needs to be. Once again, new student groups, right? Well, if I'm a first grader who's brand new, sitting around and getting to know the fifth graders who are brand new is sweet and all, but it's not helping me build relationships that are going to last the next 4 years of Mary Lynn, right? So just being able to be very specific and intentional about this is your caseload. Also talking about involving the school counselors more with Miss Bellard on the tier 2, tier 3, and 504 end, so that they can be another support person to serve the needs of those students who are in the process alongside with Miss Bellard, who will
Okay.
be here full time.
Okay.
So just bringing
Denise, sorry.
Yes, ma'am. Mhm.
Just to keep an eye on the clock, I know you have a 4:14 stop time.
I do. I didn't
So
know. I
that's
can't
in
believe
4
it's 4:09.
minutes.
Okay.
And we
Okay,
do
thank you.
have to vote on this draft budget.
I'm on my meeting
and
right now.
vote- Correct.
Hold on one second, y'all.
So, I think this would be a good time to vote on the draft budget. So at this time, if we could have a motion to approve the draft budget as presented by Principal Bringslet today.
I have a quick question, if that's okay, about
Go ahead.
Yes.
voting on the draft budget. So we're going to vote to go forward with this budget, and then we're going to work it out finally next meeting.
There
Correct.
very well, yes. There might be changes. So we vote on this draft
Okay.
budget. I take it to the staffing conference. We talk about job descriptions, salary scales, days of work, like how does this all match, staffing requirements, and there might be some slight adjustments, and then I'll come back to the table, I guess at our next meeting, I think it's March 24th, isn't it? Or March.
I think it might be sooner than that, but
March 10th, I
I
think.
don't have it. Yeah, I think it's March 10th.
So
Okay,
this is
and
not
then-
like our
Because
final.
it has to be before March 13th.
Okay.
Okay,
Maybe
so
it's
you'll
March
take it to your people, you'll bring it
Mhm.
back to us, and then is that going to be, is that the final one, or is there still more time to work
Correct.
through stuff?
That is the final one.
Okay.
And that it's also the last go-team meeting of the school year.
Okay.
Where
Thank you.
there will be snacks.
Where there will be snacks. That is
Lord.
correct.
Oh, we do love snacks.
Well, I'll move to approve the draft budget.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Who was
And
that?
It was me, Taylor. Or Miss Steves.
Thank you, Miss Dees.
all in favor, please raise your hand or say aye.
Aye.
Hi.
And if there's any opposed, please say nay verbally so we can hear you. Motion passes unanimously.
Yay!
Yay.
Now I get to go into the staffing conference and they can tell me like 3 things that I have to change, because
Correct.
I hope that doesn't happen.
Quick announcement, if there's anything, let's see, Go team
I did have a
elections,
principal's report.
declarations. Yeah, you do have the option for a principal report if you
I
have
mean,
something you want to share in the next 2 minutes.
I know. Honestly, it was really just a list of all of the amazing things we have going on at Maryland this spring, which you will all read in your Rocket Blast. So don't even worry about it. We got a lot of fun stuff. Dare to Dream
Okay.
musical, item swap. It's gonna be a fun time.
Great. Yeah, if you know anybody who wants to run for the Go Team for next year, I think the declaration period is open through Friday. And I think that's the end of our agenda. Does anybody have any other additional pressing business at this time? Okay, if not, could I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Motion.
To adjourn.
Thank you, Ms. Dees. A second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.
Great. Any opposed, say nay. Meeting is adjourned at 4:13 p.m.
A
Thanks
minute
you
to
all.
Yeah,
Okay,
guys, right
see you
next to the
guys
next
with
one.
Thank you.
with snacks in 2 weeks.
Thank you.
All
All right.
right.
See y'all
Thanks,
soon.
guys.